Hi, I am Father Ebuka, a friend and a brother on this journey of healing, and this is Healing Cycle, a place where faith meets with psychology. Thank you to all my returning subscribers, and if you are just joining us, please do well to hit the subscribe and the follow button so that you can journey with us these 30 weeks for complete healing from pornography. Last week, we spoke about how porn hijacks the brain. This week, we shall be tackling one of the deepest lies that porn addiction tells you. The lie that you are your addiction and your addiction is your identity. In one of my earlier sessions with Jide, the same young man I told you about in the last episode, he looked at me in the eye and he said, Father, I do not even know who I am anymore. And so I looked at him and I asked, what do you really mean by that? And he said, I don't think I am addicted anymore. I think this is just who I am now. That particular statement broke me. Not because of anything, but because I have heard that before, not just from him, but from many others. There are many of us who have actually thought to ourselves, how can I love God and still be stuck in this? How can I raise up my hands in worship on Sunday and later that night scroll porn with those same hands? So you label yourself fake, you label yourself unworthy, you label yourself impure, you label yourself a disappointment or even an addict. And what if I told you that you are not your addiction? You are not your last relapse. You are not defined by the worst things that you have done. And that is what I told Jide that day, and that is what I am telling you today. That what you have done is part of your story, but it is not your identity. It is not your name. It is not whom you are. And so let us unpack why shame keeps holding you stuck in addiction and why we need to reclaim your true identity. Let's talk psychology for a second. There is a big difference between what you do and who you are. Addiction is a condition, a behavioral and a neurological look, but shame tries to make it your identity. Shame, my dear friends, is one of the most powerful emotions linked with pornography addiction. And what makes it dangerous is this: it isolates you, it makes you feel unworthy of love, it tricks you into believing that confession will no longer help you anymore. And once you stop believing that you can change, then you stop trying. And that takes you round the cycle of addiction again. That is toxic shame. And it is the number one weapon that keeps people stuck in pornography addiction. In psychology, we call this identity fusion. When your behavior and your sense of self are tangled so tightly that you cannot even tell the difference. But healing begins the moment you learn to see, I did that, but that is not who I am. That is not my identity. Now, I want to tell you something about how the shame cycle works. You feel pain or stress, then you act out by maybe watching porn, masturbating, whatever your pattern is. And then you feel guilty, then shame. Now, instead of healing, you hide. And one thing that hiding does is that hiding feeds loneliness, and loneliness triggers more acting out. And so round and round it goes. But here is the truth: what you did is not who you are. Your struggle is real, but it is not your identity. You are not your browser history. You are not your darkest day. You are more than your relapse, and you are not beyond grace. Grace is not permission, it is power. Power to start over again, power to heal, power to believe in your healing again. Let's talk spiritually. God never names you by your failures. He doesn't look at Peter and he says, this is a denier. He doesn't look at Mary Magdalene and says, this is a former prostitute. But he looks and says, beloved, redeemed, restored, and sent. It is only the devil that calls you by your sin. God calls you by your name and even better by your future. That is why in Isaiah chapter 43 verse 1, God says, fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by your name, you are mine. And so you are not lost, you are mine. And that is full stop. So realizing this, we know now that there is need to rebuild a healthy identity. If you do not heal how you see yourself, there is no habit that you can break. And that is why at Healing Cycles, we don't just deal with pornography, we deal with how porn has changed the way that you see yourself. Because when you start seeing yourself as someone worth fighting for, then the game changes. And so this brings us to our challenge for this week. This week, I want you to do something a bit different but powerful. Find a quiet moment. Open your journal. The first week I told us to get a book that is going to be your journal, and you title it Healing Cycle. So go back to that journal, open the journal, and imagine that it is 12 months from now. A time where you have healed, you have broken free from the cycle, you are no longer a slave to porn, you have rebuilt your strength and self-control, and even your peace. Now, what I want you to do is, from that future place of healing, I want you to write a letter back to your current self. And in that letter, answer these three things. What do you wish your present self will stop believing? What are the words of hope or advice that you will give to yourself currently? And what will you say to keep yourself from giving up this week? This exercise, dear friends, is not just about writing, it is about rewiring. It is giving your brain a new story to believe in and your heart a new voice to listen to. Write it, pray over it, pin it into your journal, and read it every day that the challenge comes very hard on you. I want your future self to become your present motivation. Look, dear friends, I don't know how many times you have fallen, but one thing that I know is this, that you are not beyond hope, you are not your addiction, and you are in the process of healing. And that itself is holy. There is more to your story than your struggle. There is more to your identity than the pain you currently feel in your heart. And there is more to your purpose than just surviving sin. So, if you need to fall, please fall into the arms of God and not into the pit of shame, because shame keeps you completely trapped. And if you are tired of hearing, just pray once more and want real healing, then please, I beg you, stay with me, because we are not done. We have 30 weeks journey. This is just week 2, and we have just begun. So let this episode, dear friends, burn in your heart. Do not forget these three things. You are not your addiction. You are not your worst moments. You are loved, you are healed, and you are rising. So hit the subscribe button if you have not subscribed. Share with a brother who is actually dying in silence. Share with someone whom you know needs this. Your healing is personal, but it is never meant to be private. We rise together. See you again, same time next week. I love you all.